Our next panel is Women in Transition, and it's moderator, and I've known Karen for some time. She's a community volunteer and has been a mentor to a woman in prison. She is a pen pal participant and panel discussion member in other workshops, as well as many other activities, and she'll fill us in. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here today and seeing all of you as well. It was about 6 years ago when I decided to retire after having worked at a for-profit company for 30 years and then managed a nonprofit for 12 years. So when I retired, I decided I wanted to get involved in a variety of volunteer opportunities, especially doing some things that I had never done before. So I saw an ad one day for an introduction session for mentors of women who were in prison. Well, in my lifetime, I must say, I never had any exposure to prisoners or prison. I don't think I had ever even seen a prison. And believe me, going into a prison was not on the top of my bucket list. But I gave it some serious thought, some soul searching. And the phrase that just kept jumping around in my head was the one I know you've all heard many times. I was a prisoner and you came to visit me. So I was convinced I should at least go and attend this information session. And when I was there, one of the things that really struck me was when I heard some of those statistics about the number of prisoners who end up back in prison. But what really struck me more was when they talked about the number of prisoners who have mentors who do not return to prison. And again, after praying and thinking, I decided this was a step that I should take. And so I was a mentor to a woman named Audrey in the Wksp prison, and I learned that I was her very first visitor, and she had been there for 2 years before I met her. She has a family. She has a mother, a father, she has a twin sister, a brother, and 2 sons. But when she entered prison, her family pretty much disowned her. And of course that felt really bad to Audrey. But I felt like my role as I went to visit her every month in Wksp was really just to be a listener, to let her share her story, let her tell me about what she did that day, sometimes what she ate for lunch. But we also had an opportunity to share our faith, and that was very meaningful to both of us. I was pleased then, after visiting her for 2 years, when she asked me to come to her graduation on the day that she got out of prison. And she's been out now for over 3 years. She lives outside of the Twin Cities, and yet we still had an opportunity to get together for lunch a couple times. We share cards and letters. And I'm happy to say Audrey's doing very well. She's reconnected with her family, she's working, and she's enjoying life, and she's living her faith. So as I reflected on that experience of being a mentor, I really felt for me it was a blessing. I had an opportunity again to share my faith, and I gained a friend. To me, there could be nothing better than that. So in addition to being a mentor, I have also participated in the Pen Pal program. Over the last several years, I've had 5 different pen pals from across the country. And I find those letters to be just really meaningful. Even something I remember one person wrote, "You made me smile today." And I wondered, did he have another reason to smile today, or maybe even that week? And again, sharing faith through every pen pal that I had, that was very strong in every letter that I received. So that too was a very meaningful experience. And also I learned by asking the prisoners in the pen pal letters to pray for me and for my family. It was also giving them an opportunity to give back. And I know they don't have a whole lot of ways to do that. So All of these experiences, I participate in the Angel Tree program, and I'm a prayer companion. I think they're just all wonderful ways to really live our faith. So I do hope that each of you will consider being what is the face of God to someone who might really need you in their life. And so now it is my pleasure to introduce this wonderful panel that we have here today. And first, we have Jenna Mohammed. And Jenna was released from the correctional facility in Shakopee in August 2023. She struggled with opioid addiction and a cycle of repeated incarcerations. She felt completely hopeless, living with shame, fear, and believing she did not deserve forgiveness. She said, "It is because of Twin Cities Prison Ministry volunteers and family and their continued encouragement and support that I have been able to have hope to see me through this time in their reflection of Christ's love for me." Let's welcome Jenna.
Hi, as you heard, my name is Jenna. I struggled many years with being addicted to pain medication, resulting from an illness that I had. And I was married for 10 years, had 3 beautiful children with my ex-husband. And I had become addicted to that pain medication and committed some crimes. And my first cycle of incarceration was at the Ramsey County Workhouse. And that is where I was able to detox and stop my use of pain medication. And I came out of being at the workhouse thinking that life was going to go back to normal, that everything was going to be okay, and my world had completely crumbled. My career was over, my marriage was over, raising my children in a one-family home was no longer going to be there. Everything that I had imagined for my life, for my family's life, was now destroyed because of my addiction. And I had really was struggling with a lot of shame, and like the introduction said, that I didn't feel like I was deserving of forgiveness because of the damage that I had done to my family, to our livelihood, to myself. From there, I ended up getting into more trouble and continued a repeated cycle of incarcerations, going on warrant status, running from the law, and just constantly living in fear. The second cycle stopped when I went back into the Dakota County Jail last year, and I knew that the only way that I was going to be able to make it out of this addiction and this repeated cycle of incarcerations was going to be surrendering my life to Christ and to walk in my faith and to ask for that help and reach out for that help. And it is from there that I was able to connect with Twin Cities Prison Ministry and be able to have these volunteers come in and guide me through this time, and to remind me that Christ suffered for me. He suffered for all of us. And He saw the value in my soul to give me that forgiveness. And I need to ask for that forgiveness, and I need to accept that forgiveness and want that forgiveness. And I could not continue living in that cycle and that despair of sin and living with that sin. And with the volunteers again being able to come in and to be able to do reconciliation, to have the Eucharist was very powerful. To be able to ask for that forgiveness, to have my sins cleansed with the blood and body of Christ. That was very powerful to be able to have. To be able to be in prison and have Mass every Friday, that's the closest thing to heaven on earth, is to be a part of that Mass. And that's my background. And with that, I'll pass.
Thank you so much for sharing. And next we have Jennifer Gaines, who is a passionate advocate and former inmate with over 2 decades of freedom. As a survivor of trafficking, she has dedicated the last decade to empowering and supporting women who've experienced incarceration, domestic violence, trafficking, and addiction. Through her tireless work, she's established 2 sober homes in Minneapolis, providing 19 women in recovery with a safe and nurturing environment. Her commitment extends to those transitioning from Shakopee Prison, where she offers hope, guidance, and a fresh start on the path to recovery and healing. Welcome, Jennifer.
I'm Jenny, and I'm the founder and director of JCS, Effective Sober Living. And my story started when I was 14 years old, and I was recruited by a trafficker after I ran away from home because I was mad at my mom. And I ended up spending 28 years being trafficked. And back when this kind of happened to me, people didn't understand what was happening with me, and they definitely did not know how to help me. And I didn't understand it either. There's a reason traffickers go after children, and that's because they can be programmed. And I was told over and over and over and over again that that was the only thing that I was good at, and the only thing that made me valuable was how much money I could make and how well I did at that job. And you cannot go through that and not do drugs. And I had to do drugs in order to disassociate from what was happening with my body. And through being addicted to drugs, eventually I ended up in prison, not for anything I had done, but because I took a case for my trafficker. And it cost me 30 months in prison. And it was right when I had my firstborn son, David. Now that was back in 1990. And Shakopee Prison at that time was allowing us to have our children for the weekend. And so I was able to maintain my parental bond with my son. He was a baby. He was 2 months old when I went to prison. And while I was at prison, they changed the rule. They found a syringe I think one of the children found a syringe or something, and they cut off the parental visits, except for the people who were living in the independent living center. So I focused on getting to that independent living center. And I did, I made it there. And so I was able to see my son David every weekend. And we laughed today about how he spent time in prison. And then after I got out of prison, I knew I didn't want to go back there. While I was in prison, I really focused on what can I get out of it while I'm here. I took some, I got my GED, took some college courses, some computer classes. I learned how to type, and that's what I did with my time. So when I got out, I had some skills, but I could not get a job. That background stuff just kept coming up, So I knew how to make money, and I had, a kid to take care of. So that led me back into prostitution. And one of the things that kind of went through my mind was, there were other crimes I could have done to make money, but I did not want to go back to prison. I did not want to be separated from my child again. Well, prostitution would only be a night in jail. So it's like you're weighing these, you make, lack of choices just doesn't make it a choice. And I didn't have a lot of other choices in my mind. And I ended up having 3 more children, and I went through a whole lot of stuff during those 28 years, including 5 suicide attempts. These weren't cries for help. I was on life support. I should have been dead, but God had another plan for me. And it was in 2011 that I finally got on my knees, said the salvation prayer, and the next day I woke up and everything was still the same. I got beat up that day. I was cleaning up broken glass. I found some drugs, and I thought, God didn't hear my prayer. It's hopeless for me. But I look back now, and He did hear my prayer, because it wasn't long after that, different things started happening in my life, and He led me to a program called Breaking Free, and it was there that I finally felt like people understood what I went through while I was being trafficked, and they began to deprogram some of my dysfunctional thinking. And I ended up I set some more goals. I got an internship there. I got to answer the phones. I made $150 every 2 weeks, but I was so happy to be employed there. And I worked my way up the ladder. I became an intake specialist, then I became a woman's advocate, and then I went to work in their housing program, managing 2 18-unit apartment buildings. And a friend of mine came to me and she said, you should open some sober houses. I said, I can't do that. I could never be somebody that has their own program. And today I have 2 sober homes. We're a nonprofit. I've been learning how to write grants thanks to Faye, and she's been very helpful, and I'm really glad to be here. And I want to introduce, I brought Jenna. Her name is, so we got Jenna, Jenny, and Jenna. And that wasn't planned. But Jenna, I brought her with me because she too has been incarcerated, and she's been at our Camden house since May. She's got about 9 months sobriety, and she's got quite a story to tell too.
Thank you, everyone. So like Jenny said, my name is Jenna as well. I kind of grew up in a household of alcoholism and codependency that didn't really set me off to a good start in life. I too started running away at 14 and 15 years old. The parents got a divorce. I did my time in some juvies, and I was partying, living life. I thought that's what you did when you were young, I dropped out of school in my 11th grade year. Thought moving to West Virginia with a couple of friends was going to be a great new start to life. It's pretty there, but anyway, so I ended up, that did not work out. My family was there for me. I ended up moving back in with my mother, and we were working things out, and I got pregnant. I was 18, turning 19 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I had my daughter, and luckily my mother was there to help me a lot. My daughter's dad was abusive, and so I had to go through that, and then I became addicted to methamphetamines when my daughter was about 3 months old, and from there it was okay for a couple years. Nobody really knew. I hid it really well, and I had it the whole world underneath my fingertips, and drugs don't work out that way in the long run. So, I started getting in trouble and with the law, and eventually I had gotten charged with a felony. So with a felony, that's immediate prison time. I tried drug court, that didn't really work, I just wasn't ready to be sober, so I had to go out to prison for my first time in 2017. When I was there, I did the Anthony program, which was the parenting program that Jenny was talking about. Although when I was there, they were only allowed the kids every other weekend for 4 hours. Although that was really helpful for me and my daughter, I feel like there could have been more stuff with the parenting stuff and the kids, but that was really helpful. I got out and things went okay for a while, and I immediately went back to using. I just wasn't ready to be sober still, so I had to go back to prison again, and that's when I kind of got my stuff together. I was like, you know what, I'm actually going to participate in these programs that the prison gives. They have AA, and they have NA, and they have Catholic churches, and they have Lutheran churches, and they have non-denominational churches, and all these different amazing programs that come into the prisons for us. And so I started really participating in those. What else do I have to do in prison? And it's kind of God started creeping up in there, in my brain. And I had left prison, and I still needed some more treatment, so I decided to go to Teen Challenge. Teen Challenge was a wonderful program that helped continue my faith. And that was another thing. So I am from a small town called New Ulm, Minnesota. And so I had to move out of that environment. So I actually went to the cities, and that's where I did all this treatment, started this treatment stuff. And so it was really, really difficult for me because I was 2 hours away from my family, my friends, my child. And so that was really, really difficult for me. So, and speaking of mentors and stuff like that, that was really helpful that I had people around me and resources from the sober living or the treatment program I was at. That was really, really helpful. And yeah, so I continued on and off using over the years. I stayed in the cities kind of here and there, and I have been off of parole since 2018 now. And that's a really, really, really big step for me because since I've been 14, I was in the system, in the legal system. And so that's a really big deal for me to be off of that and be following the law. And so on and off, and then I'll make it quick, sorry, kind of nervous. And so at the end of January this year, I was still using, and it's just not a life anymore, especially when I have my 11-year-old daughter staring at me and wondering what the heck is wrong with mom's eyes, So I was like, we're gonna go to treatment again, we're gonna do this again, because as long as I'm breathing, I'm trying, I'm not gonna give up. And so I went to Progress Valley over in Bloomington, and I did their inpatient program. I went to an IRTS facility after that to see if that was for me, for my mental health. My mental health was very important to me among the addiction piece. And from the IRTS facility, I went to the outpatient program, sober living. I decided I needed something different. So that's when I went to New Way, and I moved into Jenny's sober living, the JCS effective housing. And like she said, that was the end of May, and things have been going really, really wonderful. I've been in therapy for 3 years now with the same wonderful, wonderful woman. I go to 2 meetings a week. I pray. I maintain a relationship with my daughter, consistency with her. Trust is another thing, being honest, taking accountability for the things that I have done wrong, and taking accountability for the fact that I'm still not ready to be with my daughter right now. I have some more stuff to work on, and that's okay. And that I'm going to be an even better mother at the end of it. And and I can hopefully break that cycle of addiction, as her dad is an addict and alcoholic as well. Yeah, so I just graduated outpatient last Friday. I have almost 9 months clean. I I have a part-time job, consistent. I actually go and show up. And yeah, I don't know, things are really, really well. But I just want to make a few factors. For me personally, what was really important was the spiritual factor, absolutely, but also therapy for the mental health piece. Because for 99% of addicts, we're not just using just because it's fun or because we want to or what have you. You know, there's something deeper. And then also the mentors in the prison system and the churches. I just want to say, as someone who was incarcerated in prison and who, unfortunately, I didn't get to experience PFA, but I did get to experience some other church programs in there, and it is the world of difference that you guys come in. We have volunteers that come in there. Maybe someday I can go in there, whether it be for AA or whatever the case may be. I would love to do that. And those women, even the men, I'm assuming, get a lot out of it. And like I said, some of us, we don't get those phone calls from our family. We don't get those letters. We don't get those emails. So the love and support and compassion from the volunteers is, yeah, you'll never know. It does go a long way. And thank you.
Did we have any questions, or are we wrapping?
See, I think there are some.
It says, Jenna Michelle, how beautiful that you realize to have your sins forgiven and receive the Eucharist and your love for Mass. Stay strong, you are fabulous. For Jennifer Gaines, you are progressing, keep up with the wonderful programs, stick with the sober house, prayers, and being accountable. You will be the best mom yet. Keep it up. And for Jennifer Fisher, here's a question and then a comment. The question is, who typically are the sex traffickers? Are they older white men? What do you think of the Sound of Freedom film? And then God bless you for being so goal-oriented and now opening 2 sober houses.
Great question, by the way. But I'm not Jennifer Fisher, I'm Jennifer Gaines. But I assume this question was meant for me. So typically, who are the traffickers? You know, I'll tell you what they're not. They're not like they were in the movies, some big, you know, some guy with a big hat and a feather in the hat. The traffickers look just like your next door neighbor, just like your brother-in-law, you know. As far as the movie, The Sound of Freedom, I did see that. It broke my heart, and it is based on true things. But what it did for me, because that's not what sex trafficking looks like in America. And what it did for me when I saw it was, I was like, well, maybe I wasn't a victim, because it didn't happen like that for me. But I have a therapist that I still see, and she kind of helped me. Is that me? She kind of helped me, you know. It's important, you know, that we understand that that stuff goes on and is horrible, but sex trafficking happens here, it happens in Minnesota, and it happens in this town right here, Oakdale. Is that where we are? It's growing, and you know, it doesn't look like it does in that movie. That's kind of, I don't want to knock the movie or anything, I just want to point out that. And did I answer that? Yep.
And then we have one last question here for Jenna. It says, you mentioned how you lost your marriage, 3 kids home. How are you getting those things back?
Well, in all honesty, my marriage is not going to come back. However, I do hope to have a good relationship with the father of my children in order to effectively co-parent for our children. My home was foreclosed, and that was lost permanently. It is through the blessing of having my parents right now who are providing a home for me that I am able to have stable housing, safe housing, and to be able to focus right now on this time on how to rebuild my life. And regarding my children right now, I do not have, I have not been able to have my children. It's very difficult with family court right now. Even if you have a custody order stating that you have shared custody with your children when you come from a marriage and getting divorced, that other person still has to be able to allow the children to go with the other parent. And that is one of the struggles that I'm having right now is with my ex-husband in allowing the children to come at their assigned times. So right now it's really trying to navigate on how to be able to communicate with my ex-husband regarding our children. I am hoping that by my continued efforts and being a presence in their life in any way I can right now, whether it is going to the children's soccer games, showing up for conferences, being at the bus stop for the first day of school, or any kind of special events, that my presence is known so that my children don't have to live a life right now of feeling abandoned or forgotten about or just not loved. And regarding how I'm getting everything back in my life right now, I just want to say it is because God has seen me through this, and it is with the help, again, from Twin Cities Prison Ministry and my family that they are helping me see me through this by giving me the love, the encouragement, the support, the guidance. It is really hard to navigate coming out of being incarcerated in prison. You now come out with a criminal record, and you come out with that criminal record, and it is very difficult to get jobs with that criminal record. Housing with a criminal record, to rent. Most places won't rent you with a criminal record. If you are able to purchase a townhouse, you can have the homeowners association reject that offer that you put on that townhouse because of your criminal record. Right now, we know that the housing market is, with the interest rates are rising. Right now, that would be impossible for somebody like me right now to be able to afford that. So my options right now is to work with finding a place to rent or a townhouse or a condo to purchase, but then there will be those barriers and those challenges that you have to overcome. And then with family court wants to see that you are employed and that you have housing and stable housing for your children. So it's kind of a vicious cycle in a way that they're all connected. And again, it is only through this ministry that when I reach out to Kevin and Faye Connors, that they are able to help guide me through this. Having these platforms to be able to speak at are able to help with that, because there's people that have been reaching out to me, saying, "Hey, what can we do? Can we try to help you get employment here? You know, let's work with you. Let's check that criminal background and see if we can get you employed here." Regarding FAFSA, going back to school, depending on what type of charges you had, I know for a drug charge, if you were convicted in the last 3 years, you are not eligible for FAFSA. So you're not eligible to take out student loans, you're not eligible for those grants. So that's another barrier to try to figure out, okay, if I had a career prior to this and I'm no longer eligible because I am a criminal, what can I go back to school for, and what that would be able to make me employed? But you're even faced with that barrier of I can't even get access to education because of my criminal record. So it's very challenging right now, and I don't have all the answers to how to move forward right now. I just know that with coming back my biggest fear when I was incarcerated was that it's not just getting released to the community, it's to be received back into my community. And I have completely been received back into my community within the church, and they have been the most welcoming, the most compassionate, the most understanding community that has been able to give me that confidence to keep pushing forward in this, because it can be very discouraging to those coming out of incarceration. What am I going to do with my life now? How am I going to rebuild my life? And you know, I had tried it before coming out of incarceration, where I tried it the court's way, I tried it the worldly way, and it failed. It completely failed. And I spiraled out of control a second time, even worse than the first time. And when I went back into custody, I knew that the only way that I could get through this and that I could do this was reconciling myself back to God and no longer being separated from God. And that was through communion, that was through confession, that was going to Mass, that was being able to not only receive forgiveness, but to give that forgiveness to others that may have wronged me, that may have hurt me. The mercies and the graces that I received, I had to extend to others. And I just want everyone to know that, you know, going to Mass and having these programs available to those that are in custody, it not only helps us personally, but we're able to leave, you know, that church service. We're able to leave, you know, that meeting with a mentor or a volunteer and bring that to others. Others see that joy. They want to know where that light is coming from. How are you able to be so happy and so free while you were locked up? I was in prison, in a physical prison, but I was also in the prison of my own sin. And being released from that prison through my faith and through the amazing volunteers. Father Stan is here today, and I just want to acknowledge him that Father Stan has seen me through a lot of this. And it's not at just one facility. I made a big mess in my life where I was not just at one facility, I was through multiple facilities throughout the state of Minnesota. And Father Stan, no matter where I was, he would follow. He would be there in whatever way he could be. Faye and Kevin Connors have been doing the same thing for me. I made it very difficult for myself and for others. And no matter where I was transferred to, I knew that I had these individuals, these volunteers, to be there for me, to continue to support me, that I was not alone in this. And I just want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, Father Stan, and thank you, Faye and Kevin Connors. Thank you.
Thank you, and what lovely recognition for the folks who do work so hard.